Hello and welcome to the topic of ecosystems. In this video, I'm going to introduce the topic by covering some definitions of key words that you need to know, as well as discussing some living and non-living factors that can influence an organism's chances of survival. Some organisms, in fact a lot of organisms, are what we call interdependent, which means that they rely on each other. It's some sort of relationship between these living things. And when I say organisms, I'm not just referring to animals, of course, I'm also referring to fungi, bacteria, plants. They're all organisms, and to some degree, they can have relationships with each other. Those relationships could help them, sometimes they harm each other. And I'm going to talk about some of these relationships a bit later on. Ecology is the study of how organisms interact with each other and their environment. So it's an actual subject that you could study. The environment consists of all of the factors in an organism's surrounding that affect it. And these factors, or these things that can influence an organism's chances of survival, can be living or non-living factors. And again, I'm going to talk about them very shortly. The habitat is the natural residence of an organism. So it could be the forest, it could be a desert, or it could even be a drop of water. And if you think about it, a drop of water could contain millions of bacteria. And of course, bacteria are living things. I guess one of the main, if not the main definition we need to cover is what is an ecosystem. An ecosystem is formed by living things interacting with each other and their non-living surroundings. It's where organisms and their physical surroundings form a balanced environment that's different from others nearby. So we can have different ecosystems in different areas. It must have three components. It has to have physical surroundings like rocks, soil, and water. It has to, of course, consist of living organisms. And thirdly, it has to have living and non-living factors that make up the environment. And I'm going to talk a bit more about these factors in the next slide. Ecosystems can be natural or man-made, but man-made ones usually aren't balanced and need to be maintained by humans. So for example, if you've got a fish tank or an aquarium, you need to be responsible for maintaining that little mini ecosystem. You're looking after its pH, you're looking after the temperature, you're looking after the water quality by using filters, and you may also be using a pump to ensure that there's enough oxygen in that water. And if any of those factors aren't there, then the ecosystem can become out of balance and then the fish may die. Let's now discuss these factors that I've been mentioning throughout this video. Organisms in an ecosystem can be affected by two main types of factors. We have abiotic factors, or physical factors, and these are non-living things, like the quality and the availability of drinkable water, air quality, the amount of sunlight, wind, soil type, humidity, tides, waves, lightning, and fires. All of these things have the potential to influence an organism's chances of survival in an ecosystem. Biotic factors involve living things, like predators, having a food source, whether there's other competitors that are competing for your food source, infectious organisms, parasites, and collaborators, such as breeding partners. Let's look at our abiotic, or non-living factors, in a little bit more detail. Firstly, we have water, and water is essential for regulating body temperature and helping your metabolism. Temperature. Increases in temperature increase the speed of reactions in cells. Temperature of the environment is particularly important for ectotherms, which are animals that can't regulate their own body temperature, such as reptiles and fish. If a lizard wants to get warm, they will have to go and lie in the sun. If they want to cool down, they go in the shade. We, on the other hand, as humans and as mammals, are what you call endotherms, which means we can regulate our own body temperature. Fire. Fires can start from natural causes, such as lightning, or human activity. It can benefit some plants, such as acacia trees, whose seed pods only activate after the heat of a fire. Light. Photosynthesis, the production of sugar and oxygen in plants, can only occur if there's light. Changes in the amount of light in different seasons triggers plant growth and flowering. Soil. Some soils have more nutrients or can hold more water than others. And gas levels. Most living things require oxygen, so it must be present in the air or water. Colder water contains more oxygen. Biotic factors are factors that concern the relationships or interactions between living organisms in an ecosystem. Relationships between organisms where at least one organism benefits are also known as symbiotic relationships. Let's now look at 5 examples of these types of relationships. First up, we have competition. When organisms are competing for the same resource, such as food or shelter, they are in competition. Competition can be between members of the same species, and we often see this when members of the same species are competing for mating partners or for dominance in their community, or it can be between members of different species. Predation is the relationship that exists between a predator and prey, such as a spider, a predator, hunting an insect, its prey. Mutualism is the relationship when two organisms live closely together and they benefit each other. So it's a win-win scenario. A great example of this is when bees collect pollen from flowers. The bees benefit because that pollen is then used as a food source for their colony, and the flowers benefit because as the bees move from flower to flower, they're helping to transfer that pollen between the plants, and that's important for the plant's reproduction. Parasitism is a relationship where one organism lives on or inside another organism and feeds off it. The parasite usually harms the organism, but doesn't always kill it because it relies on it to survive. The brown tick feeds off the blood of a host organism. The tick benefits because it's gaining a food source, the blood supply. The host organism is being harmed because it's losing some of its blood. And blood, of course, is crucial for many reasons, including transporting oxygen and nutrients around the body. Commensalism is a relationship where one organism benefits and the other one is unaffected. A remora is a small type of fish that attaches itself to a larger fish, such as a shark. The shark has no idea that the remora is there, it doesn't benefit from this relationship, and it's not harmed in this relationship. But the remora gets to benefit because it gets a free ride, it gains the protection of being attached to the shark, and also it can feed off the scraps of food from when the shark eats. Let's now do a quick review of everything that I've covered in this lesson. We started off with some definitions. Interdependence, organisms relying on each other. Ecology, the study of how organisms interact with each other and their environment. The environment consists of all of the factors in an organism's surroundings that affect it. Habitat, the natural home or environment of an organism. And ecosystem, organisms interacting with each other and their non-living surroundings. Ecosystems must consist of 3 components: physical surroundings, living organisms, and living and non-living factors. Non-living factors are known as abiotic factors, such as water, oxygen, sunlight, and fire. Factors that involve relationships between living organisms are known as biotic factors, such as competition, mutualism, and parasitism.